Hello, welcome to my Technology Integration Unit project. I'm Kelly Parsons. Before I get into all the details, I'd like to let you know a little bit about this lesson and how I'm going to approach this presentation. The lesson I'm presenting is for a professional development session that I'm going to do this summer for librarians in Dallas ISD. And this is just a small segment of a 3.5-hour session that I am presenting. So I hope you enjoy it. My presentation I'm doing today, I'm actually trying to use some of the 12 principles of multimedia learning in this presentation. I tried to put those into action. So I'm going to try to use a friendly human voice, using the voice principle, the personalization principle, try to use more of a conversational style, and also minimal graphics and words so that you can take in what I'm saying. So those are some of the 12 principles of multimedia learning. All right, let's go. Technology. Let's look at the technology. I'm using ETEC, QuickTime, and YouTube in my lesson for the librarians. ETEC is an online presentation software that helps you to create simple, beautiful, fun presentations. It's an interesting software. I'm not sure I would use it again. After I got into it, I realized it was very limited. The free version was very limited, and you had to pay to download it and to do a bunch of different things. But it's a really good idea. I wish it was cheaper, I guess is the best way to say it. All right, the next is QuickTime. I used QuickTime to play, record, and edit and share the audio and video files on my Mac. Actually recorded it on a Mac and switched it over to my Windows machine and did the rest of it on there. And then YouTube. If you don't know what YouTube is, then we got some talking to do. Just kidding. YouTube is an online website and mobile application that allows users to view and upload and share videos. So I recorded the instructional video on my computer and then loaded it to YouTube, and I will show that probably within a presentation for my students, or the librarians. Next thing we want to talk about are the learning theories that I used in designing my my presentation, my lesson for the librarians. The first one is cognitive load theory by Jay Sweller. The cognitive load theory tells how the brain processes information. Sweller theorizes that humans have long-term memory and a working memory. In order for information to be committed into your long-term memory, it must first go into the working memory. The working memory can only process about 4 or 5 bits of information at a time. So that's very limited. So different factors affect the load of each piece of information. If your working memory is overloaded, the information will be lost. So it's important not to overload your audience's working memory. I use this theory when designing the pace and structure of my lesson, making sure to create and build on their schema in order to keep the cognitive load manageable. The next thing I used were the 12 Principles of Multimedia Learning by Richard E. Mayer. Mayer's principles lay out a foundation of good practices for multimedia instructional design. As I designed my presentation, I made sure to refer back to the principles. The principles outline ways that people learn best while learning from multimedia presentations. I found this outline from the University of Hartford and referenced it many times during the design of my presentation. And it outlines the coherence principle, signaling principle, redundancy principle, spatial contiguity principle, temporal contiguity principle, segmenting principle, pre-training principle, modality principle, multimedia principle, personalized principle, voice principle, and image principle. I will include that link at the end of the presentation. All right, Now to the objectives, not objections, the objectives of my presentation. District librarians will be able to access student accounts without scanning a paper library card. They will also know how to add photos to the student accounts in the LS2 database in order to streamline the circulation process. My audience, librarians in the Dallas Independent School District who sign up for my professional development session. And the lesson will take approximately 20 minutes from beginning to end. Now for my lesson plan. The objective, which is the same that I just repeated, was to have the librarians be able to function without printing out note cards and putting labels on them with barcodes for each student. Instead of the students standing in line and trying to find their cards, they can just open up the computer system and pull their names up. Materials, they need computer, internet access, their LS2 login information, and a web camera. The introduction to the lesson plan, I will use the Haiku deck presentation and interactive conversation. So I'll talk to the students and with the questions, and we'll kind of go back and forth with the presentation from Haiku deck. Here's a glimpse at the Haiku deck presentation. Death of a library card and other ways to make your life easier. I tried to use a little sense of humor in this. Do you still use library cards in your library? You do? Do you use these? I didn't think so. Or these? That's what I thought. So it's time to move from this to this. Let's look at LS2. So we'll talk between those slides, and I will have a conversation with them about their practices and what they actually do and see what's going on. The lesson will be actually a YouTube instructional video giving the students step-by-step directions on how to use the barcode, and I added it here. And you can here today to learn about how to check out books actually to students without using those pesky library cards. So let me walk you through the two different ways that I know how to do it, and I'm sure you have will come up with other magical ways to make these things happen. Okay, and so that is my presentation. It goes on, and I am including the Prezi in with the link here with this video so that you can go through the Prezi at your own pace as well. All right. The next thing is correlations. I used Haiku deck, and in that I used the 12 principles of multimedia learning, that people learn better when extraneous words, pictures, and sounds are excluded rather than included. So I didn't add a whole bunch of information in there, just the picture. The pictures speak 1,000 words in that Haiku deck, I believe. And people learn better from graphics and narration than graphics. The spatial contiguity principle, people learn better when corresponding words and pictures are presented near rather than far. The temporal contiguity principle, people learn better when corresponding words and pictures are presented simultaneously rather than successfully. So I used many of the 12 principles when designing the Haiku deck. I also used the cognitive load theory. I made it simple. I didn't put a whole lot of information in there at one time. With the video, I also used the 12 principles of multimedia learning and narrated it and used the voice principle and the personalization principle. And that is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.